Welcome back to the Warcraft news, and if there's one thing we're getting used to, it's WoW seasonal rollouts getting a little bit complicated. We don't always know everything that's going on, some of our predictions even end up turning out a little bit wrong. But now, after a few days of the patch, we have a huge stack of learnings today, which will make the next few days super effective for you, including what looks like a little bit of an oversight. Any alts lying around, as it turns out, can get huge stacks of crests and basically a sneaky head start on next week. There's much more to cover, of course, including today's sponsor, Squarespace, who are awesome because they just let you get the job done right. Whenever I needed a job site and a game landing page, I went to Squarespace because they just made my life easy. It's fast, cross-device, all while looking fantastic. You, of course, have got the award-winning templates to get started with, but even better, their new design intelligence and Blueprint AI guides you through building your own template. It is amazing. You come out at the end with something that's really quite impressive. Then you've got the block-based editor that is super easy to use, and that makes crafting your site so simple. And if you want even more control, Fluid Engine is a game changer that lets you do just that and granularly move elements in your site, but in a way that doesn't make it all explode on mobile, which is great. Basically, everybody should have a killer site that represents them. A good first impression helps you with jobs or even just hosting your portfolio or perhaps your side hustle. And if you are doing business, they have got you covered. Their e-commerce solutions will handle digital products, physical products. They'll hook up with your shipment provider to make all that dead simple. They support courses, they support bookings, be those in person, online, any of that, and they have a host of other features to help you succeed, like recently having proper native video that works with their memberships and their e-commerce pipeline. It's all amazing. So you can get started today at squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming. You can build your site with a free trial and then send it live with 10% off your first purchase of a site or domain with code Bellular Gaming. I'll begin with what feels like a literal cheat code. So do you remember the Crest and Valorstone rewards from the Season 1 Renowns? Basically, you get a certain amount of renown, and on any character, if you go to those renown vendors, they'll just have a load of stuff. Now here's what's kind of wild. If you've not picked up those rewards, as it turns out, they've been converted into Season 2 rewards. The quests, that is. So basically, if you've done lots of progress on your renowns, ideally if you've maxed them out, any fresh alts or untouched characters will be able to pick up 200 carved crests, 200 and 120 weathered crests right away, plus a whole ton of Valor Stones to use. Obviously, you don't need to be fully maxed or renown. Any progress will do as long as you've unlocked some of those rewards. It's definitely a handy little boost. I would say, though, it is likely best to save those until the end of week 1 when you've got some more gear to use them on. But of course, if you wanted to, you could use these right away to boost any Season 2 gear that you have found. One thing to make sure of, though, do not pick up any of the coffer keys. These renowned vendors will, of course, have quests that give you coffer keys. But the thing is, your current stack of keys will be wiped whenever Season 2 begins, which basically means if you turn those quests in right now, those keys will be deleted unless you use them over the next few days. So save those up and yeah, you'll have even more keys to do even more bounty fills to get even more upgrades. And also a quick note for alts while we're here. Good news, right? There is going to be a skip for the campaign. The bad news, though, is that's not going to be until next week. And the way it works is fairly straightforward. You finish the whole campaign on one character. That's going to be possible whenever the next chapters unlock next week. Once that's done, you will get an option to skip the campaign on your alts. And thankfully, Blizzard said the skip will work at any time, right? So if you've already made some progress on the campaign on one of your alts, no problem. You'll still be able to do the skip, which is a massive improvement over other skips that they've done. All right, that said, let's talk about renown. On the topic of your undermined renown farming, there's a few things we did not anticipate, and we all totally forgot that the Darkmoon Fair is up, so be sure to pick up your 10% buff before we carry on. Now, there are some sources that, totally escaped us on the PTR. One of them is the Dungeon Quest. That's, of course, the usual weekly Dungeon Quest that you pick up from an NPC that merges my two favorite things, beer and goths. Pick that up in Dornagal, and you'll be able to get even more rep. In fact, it will be 1,500 for the Cartels of Undermine. It's pretty good, and that's not bad bad for. As an example, a quick run of Arakara, and if you don't feel like doing that with other people, you can absolutely nuke it out on the follower mode, so that's pretty good. Next then, the weekly renown boost from Bountiful Delves has been updated to work with the new renown, so basically, clear those suckers for an extra 1000 rep. Now unfortunately, this is still random, so basically just run Bountifuls this week until you see the correct rep pop up, and generally speaking, for getting your renowns up, man, doing those Bountiful Delves is a real good source. And if you add together these two sources, you'll actually get a complete bonus level, and remember, the faster you get to rank 13, the sooner you'll get some bonus Valor Stones, but more importantly, you'll unlock the Chet feature, which you can do regularly. Okay, on top of Dark Moon, it is also World Quest Week. That means any World Quests done will be giving you an extra 50% rep, which is actually pretty major. Now, also, do not forget the World Quest contract item. That's the one that is made by Scribes. It's going pretty cheap in the auction house right now, and the rank 3 version of it gives you 15 rep per quest completed, which is honestly not a huge amount, but hey, that could be a few hundred bonus every week, which is quite nice. And if you really want the enchanted crest ASAP, that's the one you get at the end of the renown. Well, every little bit will help. So clearing all of this, as well as your daily rares, your side quests, including the new delves and dungeon quests, will get you a lot. If you're doing that with the Dark Moon buff, you will be ahead of the pack, because there are thousands of upfront renowns available this week, especially those side quests. There are 13 storylines, each of those grant you between 100 and 200. They're real quick, that's a lot of progress, and of course you can do that with a juicy 10% bonus, and that'll save yourself some serious effort later on. The next topic to hit is gear, and you can very much get started on Season 2. Importantly, you can get 2 veteran pieces pretty easily, and then an extra veteran piece if you do a little bit extra. So, just like with Season 1, you will get a piece of eye level 626 veteran gear from the first 2 pinnacle caches that you loot each week. Now those are from your major weekly activities, that's things like the special assignment and Undermine, and finishing the surge pricing weekly for Nani Tallulah. And if you're wondering when surge pricing is up, you can just check the new UI that's on your map. It's really sick. I love how they've displayed the event timings. Okay, there's that. Also, you'll be able to get another veteran piece on rank 7 of the Cartels of Undermine Renown track. And while I'd personally save the resources, if you wanted to, you could upgrade those all the way to 645 now, which is pretty good. Next then, if you're rolling a fresh alt, the only other gear you'll be getting is Explorer gear from World Quests and BOE sources like Rares. If you've got the cash, the auction house is actually flooded with eye level 603 BOEs right now. They're of course still a little bit overpriced. Those prices will obviously tank as time goes on. That's an amazing way to just get an alt ready to go nearly instantly. Now on the topic of upgrading that gear, all the usual sources still grant weathered and carved crests. That means weekly boxes, even for old content like the theater troupe, those will of course drop carved crests. Weathered crests then drop from the lower ticket items. One of my favorite ones is always just flying through all the little Azeroth orbs, which can just give you weathered crests. It feels kind of crazy. Okay, that's the main stuff you need to know right now. We will be back with more in-depth stuff for the season launch, but right now that's all you need to get ahead. And with that said, let's talk about some news. The news is pretty damn interesting this time. Loads slipped under the radar with all of us focusing on the patch. One thing is 11.1.5 being more important than we thought. So as soon as 11.1 went up, the label on the PTR changed to 11.1.5, so we can expect testing to begin in the next few weeks. And it'll be an interesting one. They're bringing some mysterious new content that's just called Nightfall, and of course bringing back horrific visions from Battle for Azeroth. I am very excited for those. If you weren't there, they were solo or party-based challenges, all themed around saving old god nightmare versions of Stormwind and Orgrimmar. Basically, they were really fun, they had optional challenge modes, and this time round, they might actually have rewards that don't damage the whole system, which would be nice. But there's actually some more speculation in that. You see, the Renown track for the raid does not have the dinars, right? The gear tokens that were originally planned to be there. And game director Ian Hazzikostas told Nagura in a recent interview that it's coming in 11.1.5. He said that they wanted it to be something that unlocks for everyone and, quote, have more control over it as a universal system rather than every player having to progress toward it. Basically, it seems they knew that was a really cool reward and they didn't want to stash it away behind like 15 weeks of just clearing the raid. Could be interesting. Maybe they'll just be unlocked with the patch. maybe there'll be a reward for the Horrific Visions feature or whatever the hell this Nightfall content is going to be. Now, since this wave of interviews is basically patch marketing, there's only really one bit of other news, right? And that's in the form of But Why Those interview that revealed raids are going to drop quite a bit more Valor Stones this time round, which is bloody good news. Now, there's no news in fixing the abundance of stones later in the season, but at least for now, stopping the early drought is Blizzard's goal. If you're not aware, basically what would happen is you'd be super starved of Valor Stones. That always felt really bad because, well, you'd think that the crests are the thing that really should be gating your upgrades, not Valor Stones. So that is said to be better for raiding. Now, we would of course end up later on in the patch swimming with Valor Stones and it feeling kind of awful we couldn't send them to alts because you'd have a cap of 2,000 and, well, you'd earn them from content, they'd just disappear because you're already at the cap. Hopefully Blizzard are doing something there. And to look just a little bit more into the future, well, patch 11.2 is actually on Blizzard's internal test servers. Yes, so that's appeared. The ride never stops. They're actually pretty damn blistering with their development pace. And, well, to pay for that, we've got a fresh consumption opportunity. Blizzard are trying something a bit new, so for $65 you can buy 5 recolors of the same mount. It's the Meeksis bundle. I don't know what a Meeksy is, but yeah, you can buy them. You can buy 5 of them for $65. So it's a stack of mounts that are recolored. I don't know, that really does not seem like a value to me. As always, the artists have done a lovely job, but I just cannot see that making sense as a purchase. But I'm sure many will. Now, the other things you can buy, well, there's the Mists Classic stuff. Basically, you can get the Sha-infused Heroic or Epic packs, which is $40 for a weird pet, a Shad-touched Cloud Serpent, and a Riding Tiger, as well as some Property Black Tea and an Alt-Universe Sha-corrupted Storm Stout set, which is pretty good, I guess, if you want to be an Edgelord monk. And if you jump up to the more expensive tier, it's $80. It'll also have a level 85 Classic boost and a month of game time. I have a feeling a lot of people will be tempted because those cosmetics look really nice, and it's no surprise that WoW token prices have indeed spiked a little bit. Okay, for the news though, I think it's safe to say I've saved the best for last. This could be absolutely huge and maybe transformational for the game. I don't say that lightly. Blizzard have confirmed that they are putting Weakauras in the game. I mean, not literally Weakauras the add-on, but seemingly their own version of that, right? So it's not a full-blown add-on within WoW, but it's Blizzard's own version that does what most people use Weakauras for, tracking basic things. And this is what data mining is suggesting. There are these UI files that are named Cooldown Viewer. Now, they've got code for labeling abilities as essential, utility, and tracked, both in a bar and an icon form. Fairly interesting, and since player housing stuff was leaked via PTR in the same way, this may indeed be a fragment of a 12.0 build, or something like that, somehow slipping in. And that means, of course, it'll be a while before we get any of this, but still, I think this is quite major. As an example, edit mode replaced tons of add-ons for tons of people. This does then feel like a pretty damn clear next step. I mean, already in this patch, you can see the new tabbed version of like the map and quest log. It's got a really cool way of displaying events on a timeline. And if we think about Blizzard trying to make their combat stuff more clear, well, we've got the way better swirlies now, and man, they are way better. If they were to have a more official version of Weakauras, that would actually codify what information players can see. That could be extremely helpful for just everybody being on the same level, and maybe remove some of the need for some of the more degenerate stuff that really is kind of damaging for the game. Being real, if you're developing a game, you don't want social pressures existing that tell people they need external stuff in order to play it properly. Now, you and I can sort of know you don't really need those things, but the thing is, the perception exists in people's brains, and the perception is often more the problem than the reality. Now that's it for the news this week. We are hard at work on our seasonal guide content. Check back next week. There will be delves, gearing, alt catch-up, anything else that you may need. But until then, if you want something to do over the weekend, check out this video next. You can go and you can unlock almost all of the new Warband campsites.